Hello, wonderful people, viewers and subscribers. What would your answer be to this question? If someone walks up to you and asks, is God white or black? Or perhaps your child asks you this question, Daddy, Mommy, is God white or black? What would your answer be? And I'm here based on the mandate, the core pillar mandate of this platform, to bring to you narrative information that will ultimately trigger the freedom of my people holistically. Political freedom, economic freedom, social freedom, and ultimately spiritual freedom. And we as Black people, Africans, we need to understand whom we are spiritually. The other time I made a video concerning Black Jesus. I know the feelings. I know the emotional attachment and sentiment by my people when some of these topics are discussed. But it doesn't matter. What matters is the truth. And until we start asking deep questions and looking beyond the mere story we hear, or looking beyond, searching our minds to discover the truth, we may not really be free, because it is only truth that can make us free. Now, without wasting your time further, I want us to watch this narrative by this sister. I cannot say it better than she is, and I'll be right back to wrap it up.
Regardless of your religious beliefs or what part of the world you're in, chances are you could pick Jesus out of a lineup. Shoulder-length dirty blonde hair, blue eyes, beard, washboard abs of steel. I feel like there's a CrossFit joke in there somewhere. But this globally recognized version of Jesus didn't come from Bethlehem. This guy's actually a 20th century American. The 1941 Head of Christ painting is the most widely reproduced piece of artwork in world history, making this the most popular Jesus. So what did Jesus actually look like? Well, the earliest drawings of Jesus and his disciples dates back to 235. In the first images, he was too young for facial hair, but the hair on his head was short and curly. And in the 4th century, Jesus starts popping up in Roman catacombs with short dark hair, a beard, and noticeably melanated skin. People have been arguing about Jesus' appearance basically since the beginning of time. The Bible doesn't ever mention Jesus' race, which makes sense. Christianity had to be universal for it to spread, so there was no point in confining him to one race or another. But one of the biggest disputes among theologists had nothing to do with his skin color, but his level of attractiveness. On one hand, a plain and average Jesus would be relatable and non-threatening, but on the other hand, how could a holy savior be anything other than gorgeous? In 2001, the BBC TV series Son of God did a facial reconstruction of Jesus using forensic science. Combined with the early artistic portrayals, ethnic traits, and the fashion of the day, the finished product was a dark-skinned, bearded, short-haired Jesus. So how did Jesus go from looking like a dark-haired Jewish guy to a white blonde guy? Starting in the Middle Ages, that's somewhere around 476, and especially in the Renaissance, artists began depicting Jesus as white, usually with blue eyes and blondish hair. Many speculate that the turn was influenced by Bible verses that use lightness to symbolize purity and darkness for sin and evil. On the surface, white or light equaling good and pure, and black or dark equaling evil and bad seems harmless. But when bias gets put in the mix, things get dicey. Medieval Christians didn't like the idea of Jesus being dark-skinned and dark-haired because that meant he looked Jewish. Spoiler alert, he was Jewish. Because medieval Christians didn't like Jewish people. In fact, they were actually the first to force them into ghettos, complete with special armbands, both of which were later revived by the Nazis in the 1930s. Yikes. That light equals good and dark equals bad idea even carried over into anti-Semitic propaganda. Jewish people were portrayed as dark and menacing with giant noses, darker complexions, and bushy facial hair. And you can't really oppress Jewish people when your own savior looks Jewish. Thus, white Jesus gained more popularity. But the medieval Christians weren't the only ones to use this new and improved white Jesus to justify oppression. Can anyone say colonialism? In the 1600s, Catholic missionaries sprung up all over the New World with plans to convert the indigenous people. This conversion included enslavement, forcing many to abandon their native languages and traditions, genocide, and of course, stealing their land. Again, we see this narrative of dark-skinned people being bad, thus needing to be tamed or killed in order order to conform to this good or white standard. Hello, white supremacy. Now, here's where things get interesting. During slavery, you see two very different versions of Jesus and Christianity spring up. For pro-slavery Christians, converting slaves to Christianity and getting rid of their heathenistic religions and languages was part of their godly mission. Slave owners used religion as a means of control and persuaded slaves to convert with the promise of heaven and spiritual freedom, not to be confused with freedom. But black slave ministers zeroed in on God freeing the slaves from Egypt. Not to mention, Jesus' persecution, execution, and resurrection is a classic good overcoming evil story. And to the horror of slave owners, many slave rebellions were inspired by that very triumph. And despite these very different versions of being a good Christian, the black church became an incredible pillar of the black community. For slaves who had been separated from their families, the church became a new family and a place of refuge, especially post-Civil War. Heck, the civil rights movement was born in black churches. I'm thinking of a Baptist minister with the initials MLK. Ever heard of him? So what does all this mean? Are we saying that Jesus and Christianity are bad because historically too many people have used it to justify terrible things? Absolutely not. Anything can be twisted and abused, especially religion. But in the same way we try to tackle race and pop culture here, it's important to look at how iconography can also be influenced and shaped for the purpose of oppression. And it's also important to remember that misuse isn't exclusive to any one religion. Today you can see all kinds of depictions of Jesus around the world. There's an Asian version, Native American versions, and tons of artwork with lock-sporting black Jesus. There's even a Black Jesus TV show. When white oppressive power structures excluded other versions of Jesus' appearance, they were misusing religion to spread discrimination. Now communities across the globe are reclaiming their right to see Jesus however they choose. While a Korean or a black Jesus might not be historically accurate, just like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus, people of color have the right to see themselves in their religion, especially after centuries of being taught and forced to worship a God that doesn't look like them. We aren't saying that white people are wrong for wanting to see a Jesus that looks like them, but that historically, white Jesus has been used to oppress and erase the histories of people of color in a way that Korean Jesus or black Jesus has not. Honestly, we may never know what Jesus really looked like, but whatever you do, don't get me started on White Santa, because this video is already way too long.
Fine, you've listened to her attentively. Many of you will agree with her, and some of us will not agree with her. But be it as it may, whether you agree or you don't agree with her, the fact remains that when I want to answer that kind of question, is God white or black? I'll tell you simply that God is God. God is neither white or black. But biblically, it was described Jesus in Revelation as a black man. He has a woollish hair. He has a bronze feet, like a feet in a color of bronze in a furnace. And the depiction, if you go around many churches around our homeland in Biafra, in Nigeria, in Africa as a whole, and in the world at large, they depict Jesus to be a white. And I guess this video narrative have opened our minds to further questions and discoveries. I want to get your opinion on this. You know why? It is very important to our people because we have seen ourselves as lesser humans. I mean Africans. And no wonder everyone except Africans as a people treats us as such. Everyone treats us as lesser humans because we don't see ourselves as equal humans as the rest of the world. But it is high time for us to understand our position in life, that God made us first. This black skin you see, is the creation of the image of God. No matter what you believe, whether you believe in white God or a black God, just know that God made you in his image and likeness. And what is God's image and likeness? God's image and likeness is of humanity first. God's image and likeness is of humanity first. I keep saying it, that you can't serve God without serving humanity. That service to humanity is service to God. Even the Bible made it clear that how can you say you love me when you do all this? When you don't, you see someone that is not clothed, dead, you didn't clothe the person. You saw me in the prison, you didn't come and visit me, you didn't give me food. That when you show love to these people, you've shown love to me. How can you show love to God that you've not seen, whereas people around you, you don't show them love? God is love. These are the things, when we understand it, then Africa will begin to develop. Because in Africa, especially in Nigeria, the headquarters of religious activities, both Christianity and Muslim, things continue to decay. There is immorality, there is corruption, there is impunity. The system has gone total. Oh God. And yet, there are multiplicity of churches and religious organizations every day springing up left, right, and center. Yet nothing has changed. I think it is high time we start thinking right. It matters. Just know that God created you in his own image and his likeness for love, justice, equity, orderliness, sincerity, humility in service. If you lack these things, my dear, you are just a religious bigot. Christianity is a life, and I'll keep admonishing that you start living the life and stop being a religious bigot, observing religious doctrines without living that life out. If we exhibit 30% of Christian values in terms of reflecting in our lives, the way we live, our relationship with people, I tell you, here will be the paradise we ever seek. I'm signing out. If you like this video, share it. If this is your first time of coming on this platform, you're welcome on board. This is where I will tell you the truth, the way it is. I'm signing out. Stay safe. Goodbye.